Hello everyone. So in this video we would like to talk about approaches to the study of nationalism in India, a reading based upon the book From Plassey to Partition written by Shekhar Bandhopadhya. So let's talk about what Bandhopadhya has to say in this reading. So he argues that the establishment of the British rule in India marked the beginning of Indian political nation. Prior to this, Indian political nation simply did not exist. He further argues that Indian nationalism was a product of colonial modernity. Indian nationalism that confronted British imperialism in the 19th century was a product of colonial modernity. Bandhopadhya then talks about that what was the response of the colonized people, the Indians, in opposition to the British rule in India. So, British, the colonial power, it thought that to civilize and enlighten Indians was its primary responsibility. So Bandhopadhyay writes, it was a self-professed mission of the colonizers to elevate the colonized from a state of decadence to a desired state of progress. This is very simple that Indians did not invite the colonial power to come and rule on Indians. It was rather their own self-proclaimed mission to civilize Indians. Let's move to the next point. What was the Indian resistance to this colonial mindset? So, naturally, when you colonize somebody, he or she will actually resist it. This is very natural. Similarly, Indians contested this stamp of backwardness and asserted that they were capable of uniting and ruling themselves. Indian society, Bandhopadhyay argues further, was diverse and plural in nature, and hence it was quite challenging to forge a national unity that was the need of the hour, transcending multitudes of conflicting socio-economic interests. Besides unity, Indians wanted a right to self determination. Keeping in view of Indian plurality and various forms of diversity, Surendranath Banerjee, an eminent Indian historian, argued that India was a nation in making. Similarly, Partha Chatterjee, another eminent Indian historian, he argues that Indian nationalism, though it was different, but a derivative discourse from the West. In a way, it was shaped by the Western discourse. Similarly, we have got another eminent historian in the form of Ashish Nandi, who says that Indian nationalism was shaped by Western imperialism. So we have now got this Benedict Anderson, who has written a book called Imagined Communities: Reflection on the Origin and Spread of Nationalism, and he argues that national imagining or construction in the colonies, including India, was facilitated by the colonial regime. This was done by the introduction of Western forms of education and print capitalism, which in turn created an intelligentsia that was essential to the process of imagining the nation. Partha Chatterjee argues that the model Anderson used was too heavily based on European and Western Hemisphere examples. So, whatever Anderson is arguing, Partha Chatterjee is saying that it cannot simply be applied to the Indian conditions because Indian conditions are simply different from the Western conditions. Now, Shekhar Bandhopadhya moves on and talks about C.A. Bailey, another eminent British historian. So he says that Indian nationalism was built on pre-existing sense of territoriality, a traditional patriotism, rationalized, that simply means justified by indigenous ideas of public morality and ethical government. Now we have got another school here, and that is school, as Shekhar Bandhopadhya argues, it's known as early nationalist school. Early nationalist school basically focused upon supremacy of a nationalist ideology and a national consciousness. It it had a commonly shared antipathy towards colonial rule. It was rooted or embedded in a feeling of patriotism, an ideology rooted in a sense of pride in India's ancient traditions. Early nationalist school ignored inner conflicts that later led to split of the country into two parts. Partition of the country, we call it, that took place in 1947, as we all are aware. This school assumed nation as a homogeneous entity, despite distinctions, conflicts, and inner fissures. Now we have got another school here, that is known as New Traditionalist School. New Traditionalist School, in opposition to previous interpretation, a new interpretation has emerged in the Anglo American academia that has the following argument. What is the argument? Politicization of the Indian society developed along the lines of traditional social formations such as linguistic regions, castes, or religious communities rather than the modern categories of class or nation. Now we have got this interesting topic here, emergence of Western educated elite. These elites were created by the British through the tool of Western education. The most important catalysts of change in this context were the institutional innovations of the colonial state, notably the introduction of Western education and political representation. These new opportunities intersected with the traditional Indian social divisions and created a new status group, the Western educated elite, which drew its members from the existing privileged indigenous collective such as the Bhadralok in Bengal, Chitpawan Brahmins in Bombay, or the Tamil Brahmins of Madras. The backward regions or the underprivileged groups that remained outside this limited political nation, they had no access to the modern institutional life of colonial India. In next video, we would like to talk about era of modern mass nationalism as well as Cambridge School and other schools of thought as have been argued by Shekhar Bandhopadhya. Thank you very much for watching.